A probe is being launched into how Canada's justice system treats victims of sexual assault. Benjamin Roebuck, who is the federal ombudsperson for victims of crime, says victims' rights are often ignored and that survivors say the system doesn't make them feel safe. He says the idea that survivors will have a painful experience navigating the justice system has become normalized.
As the federal ombudsperson for victims of crime, our office provides special advice to the Minister of Justice directly and to Parliament, and we appear at parliamentary committees and advise on legislation. So our hope is that we can identify really concrete and clear actions to improve things for survivors, and that we can present that to the government and then request a government response and follow up to see that actions are being implemented.
Criminal defense lawyer Joseph Neuberger says the trial process is the most challenging part of sexual assault cases.
Immediately afterward, I'm sure that more money can be poured into the victim assistance program to make sure that there's more robust assistance available to them. But when it comes time for the trial process, they are, dealt with very professionally by police, victim services, and by the Crown Attorney. It's the trial process which is challenging. But there's no way to eliminate that if we want to have a fair and just system and have these cases tried so we get to a just verdict.
For more on this, we are joined live in studio by Shannon Maroney, a trauma therapist, social worker, and survivor advocate. Thanks for coming in. It's good to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, your initial thoughts on this probe. Do you agree with it? Do you think it's about time we look at this a little more closely?
I think it's long overdue. So this is very good news. And I say this with all the titles that you just listed off for me, but also as a registered victim on the federal victims list.
The federal ombudsman said that the rights of the victims have long been kind of ignored. Can you speak a little bit to that with your experience? Do you feel that that's the case?
I absolutely feel that that's the case. Of course, our system is based on innocent until proven guilty, and it has to and must stay that way all the time. But it also is so prohibitive to a victim who wants to even think about coming forward with charges, because it is a well-known fact that the cost of justice, the burden of the justice process, will be borne by the victim.
And I think that's the argument for some people who don't agree with this, is that that might hurt the accused, innocent until proven guilty. That is how we work. But there must be some ways with these recommendations that are going to be put toward the government. There must be some ways to try to address how this system works for victims of sexual assault, but also still keep that, innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one things that victim stands for, and in my view, my personal experience, my professional experience, is that the V of victim means that you are voiceless, you're vulnerable, you've been violated, and you are often vilified. And that's really the part I think that is the voicelessness and vilification happens in the justice system, where it becomes all about who you are, your character, why you were where you were, what you were thinking at the time. And it still comes down, even in these days, to what you were wearing. I heard this asked and brought up as an issue even in the Peter Nygaard trial. So that is what we have to get away from and have a much more respectful process that honors that, when what this, the criminal lawyer who was commenting here said, the trial process is the most difficult part. That's, when you think about that, you're adding that to a victim who has already been sexually assaulted. So we actually have, when victims themselves are saying the trial at times was worse or almost as bad as being sexually assaulted, we have a real problem. And we don't need to make changes that sacrifice the process for an accused in the way that is feared. That's what people fear. I would love to see, I want to see, I advocate to see a much closer relationship between mental health, the mental health system and the justice system. So that right from the very beginning, at the point where somebody is going to the police and is thinking, I need to report this, or even what's involved in reporting, what's going to be required of me, that they're also being provided mental health counseling and therapy by qualified trauma therapists. And for all the good work that Victim Witness Assistance Program does, by and large, the victim services workers are not therapists. And so we need to kind of double down on what it is that we're providing people who are stating that they are victims of sexual assault. And for the naysayers who are, very, very concerned about false allegations, they are exceedingly rare. And I'm asked this a lot, why didn't people come forward? Or it's because it is so incredibly difficult and they know what they're going to face. So when somebody does, without saying, of course, there's an automatic guilty plea, I think we take that very, very seriously.
It's been so good to get your insight on this. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Shannon Maroney.